Hey guys, how's it going? Back with another one here. We're doing a Total Gore plus 12 by somewhat popular demand, I guess. The last video I did was the first one I've ever done, and it was a 5-mask Horrific Vision. And after that, I had quite a few people reach out and say, like, hey, if you could do, some narration and commentary over these different things, whether it be Arena, Mythic Plus, things like that. And for the past few months, I've been noticing kind of like a rift in the community, at least like through Reddit, whatever kind of perspective that gives you. That there's like a lot of these players that are kind of on the backside of this harder content, and they're afraid to break through into it. Like obviously there's a lot of toxic and nasty people out there that are very unforgiving. If you go in and don't know everything to interrupt, don't know how to handle certain boss mechanics on Tyrannical when the fights are lasting a lot longer, things like that. So hopefully I can help like bridge that gap and kind of make people a little bit more confident going into this stuff, having never seen it before or not having seen it on this difficulty. So we'll get started here. Right off the bat, me and these guys were kind of BSing a little bit before we started. There was some PvP going outside and some shenanigans and all that, and I forgot to get my gear all set up. So right now I'm in like full-on single target gear, which I mean, it's not the end of the world because it's Tyrannical week, but like there's still more trash than anything else in these places. So you want to do a good bit of AoE. So at the last second there, I'm flipping my gear. I realize it. Loading screen comes on. I'm like, oh shit, it might be too late. Let me still try. Of course, first 10 seconds you can still swap gear. So I'm like frantically trying to throw my gear on. I go over 40 corruption. I try to drop myself back down. Go way too low down to 10. But anyway, I'm in decent shape. So we get started. Most people clear a good bit of this room now just because it's like so easy and there's a good percentage you can get out of it. So I open with Triple Garrote, Crimson Tempest, pop Blood of the Enemy, and then just spam the shit out of Phantom Knives. It seems so antithetical to how Rogue utilizes combo points and stuff like that. But when you have Blood of the Enemy up and when you have bleeds rolling on a few targets, your energy regen is just so much that you can literally spam Phantom Knives and they blast. I mean, you can see I'm hitting like 125k there, which honestly is really nothing. I only have 2 Echoing Blades right now, 2 Subterfuge, or Shrouded Suffocation, and 1 Rupture. So if I had 3 Echoing Blades, 3 Subterfuge, like it would just be even more devastating. I just haven't been lucky enough to get that gear. And another reason I wanted to use this video is because there's like a lot of stuff that goes wrong throughout the run, and I think it's all about like awareness and trying to like help the group through those things, right? It's not all about like the tank and the healer. So as you can see there, somebody accidentally pulled those 2 extra crocodiles. The tank didn't look like he was counting on pulling them. I noticed it right away, so I immediately Tricks of the Trade him. I feed those mobs to him so they come on in. Not great on a bursting week to make pulls this big, in my opinion. If you're just taking things kind of casually, but if your group's aware, you can hammer these things down, get a few out of the way, hold your DPS a bit. We did a pretty bad job here, so we got 2 bursting there, and then, okay, that dropped. And then I think we get a few, and we try to slow down, but then we chain them. So again, I'm aware here, and to alleviate my healer, I Cloak of Shadows my stack. So now he doesn't have to worry about me. He can take care of the rest of the group. Looks like the Demon Hunter might have thrown up Blur or something like that. He hardly took any damage. So it's always about like being aware of what's going on. If errors do occur, don't give up. Don't keep doing what you're doing. Like, do your best to try to make it easier on the group, especially your healer. Like as often as you can make your healer's life easier, so they can watch everybody else, or especially the tank and everything going on around them. You rely on them so much. So this fight, I'm sure most people probably know all these mechanics, but I'll just go everything. So little mound spawn, little dudes come out of them. You don't want to run over the mounds even after they're gone. They'll stun you and do a ton of damage. He burrows, goes underground, and then he picks somebody to come back on. You want to make sure you're not near that person. He will hit everybody if you're near them when he comes back up from being underground. And then you just dance the whole fight. He'll push you around with this sandstorm a little bit, so you got to kind of like dance with it. Make sure it doesn't push you into these mounds again. And then if you're a class that has some sort of misdirect, so I've got Tricks of the Trade, Hunters have misdirect, I can't remember if there's any others, I think those are the only 2. It's super helpful if on cooldown you can help the tank get fed these ads, so you'll see for the most part that anytime the ads come out, and especially if they're spread a bit, I'll usually pop Tricks and feed the tank. Right here, I did something stupid. I had the upheaval, so I got away from everybody, but I did it kind of close to a mound. So the upheaval, it throws you up when he comes up. You can't avoid that, but it also pushes you to the side, like maybe like a yard or 2. And I was just close enough to that mound that it dropped me onto the mound, took a huge hit of damage, ate a stun, I used my human racial to get out of the stun, self-heal myself a little bit. This healer was really good. He caught me too. Props to him. He did a really great job this run. Yeah, and that's pretty much the majority of the fight. So you'll see kind of towards the end, you know, we keep feeding him these ads. We keep blowing these ads up. I'm using Fan and Crimson Tempest and just keeping the boss targeted. This is a tyrannical week, so I'm trying to pump the boss as much as I can just because his HP is insane, and you know, you want to try to end the fight as quickly as you can. And then as we get kind of towards the end, I think this is the last set of the ads that we really kind of care about and try to force down. Usually when he gets around like 20–15%, you can start, you know, kind of ignoring mechanics and just try to burst him down. So you'll see here I'm just kind of mutilating. I kind of quit my Fan of Knives, and I think for some reason I start fanning again, probably just to pad meters because I noticed the tank being over me a little bit, and that never feels good. So after that, these little bugs come out of the sewer. I drop a Crimson Tempest on them just because I had 5 combo points stored up from the last few Garrotes, a Rupture or 2, just to get my energy regen ticking. Tank tells me he wants me to run up and take care of this gate, so I dip after I get a bunch of bleeds going to do that. Trying to open the gate, bursting starts happening, and it's interrupting me. I didn't realize it at first, so it's kind of a delayed reaction, but I cloak it off so I can get the gate open and get back to him. I was just assuming they were going to go for this pillar after they cleared that pack, and I was right in that assumption. So the thing with Awaken, so this is the +10 mechanic. So any key you do that's a 10 or higher, you're going to have to deal with these kind of mini bosses, and I think there's 5 of them, if I'm right. So the thing with them, you go into this like nether realm to deal with them, and then when they die, you come back out, they drop a little portal for you, and you come right back out. But what this effectively does is it gives the group like an unlimited shroud potential. So like it used to be you'd have to use invis pots, you used to have a rogue in the group to shroud around things. What these guys do, if you kite them like we're doing here, you can kind of strategically take them to where you want to be next, skip a bunch of trash, and then you kill them in that place, the portal drops, and you know, you reappear in the main realm, and you kind of continue to run the normal mobs and stuff like that. So the thing with this guy, he's got these little ads, and after, like, it only picks one, and it's like every 10 seconds one of them starts exploding. So that little ad will plant, huge green ring goes around them, and they explode after a few seconds. On top of that, he himself has a bunch of things that need interrupted, so if you set up a good interrupt rotation, I usually just kind of feel out interrupt rotations with pug groups like this, because obviously, you know, we're not on voice chat, we can't call it out. I'll usually take the first one, and I usually do it really early. I know it's like, it's in everybody's head to, oh, interrupt at the last second, because, you know, it's a 3-second cast. If you interrupt at 2.8 seconds, then that's 2.8 seconds that the mob's not doing anything. Absolutely, that's true, but when you're in a pug setting like this, I usually kick as soon as a cast starts going off. That way we don't overlap them, right? Because I figure everybody else is kind of that same mentality where they're going to wait till the end, so I'm going to do it early. That way there's no risk of overlap. They see, okay, you know, somebody already got this one, now I can, you know, wait for the next one. So that's sort of how I go about interrupting in pug groups. If I'm with, you know, guildies or friends or whatever, we just call everything out. Or there's some weak auras that can give you an order and track everybody's kicks and excuse me, and stuff like that. But yeah, we lost our demon hunter there for a second on the way up here. He died. The other thing with kiting that spider mini boss, I was talking about the little ads exploding. They do it no matter what. So typically what people will do with that guy is do a long kite with him and just get everybody way ahead of him. Just, you know, run for it like a good, you know, 20 seconds, 25 seconds. So by the time the boss gets to you, all those little ads have exploded along the way, and they're, you know, they don't have the potential to blow up on anybody. In that case, back there, what happened is one of those ads, the other guys didn't realize we were going to be running ahead so far. Again, it's a pug, and they stayed behind, and they ended up getting like targeted by the mini boss with his casts, and they probably got, you know, stuck in some of those poison pools that were exploding and stuff. So that demon hunter fell behind and died, but he caught up quick since we're early here. This is another mini boss. So this one, he's a giant goop, and he leaves shit behind everywhere, as you can see, and he also spawns these, I think they're 4 tentacles. So it's easiest to wipe these tentacles out first. I usually open on him, get some bleeds rolling, and then I'll help the group wipe out the tentacles. You can stand in this purple stuff if you have immunities, so like I cloaked there as he came through to kind of get some good damage in, and then as cloak was fading, I made sure to jump out. And I usually just stand on the tank for this. Not always ideal to be attacking a mob from the front, obviously, but in this case, with him leaving purple pools behind him everywhere, I just deal with some occasional parries and stand on the tank. I know there's a pack that comes across this bridge, so I kind of exit that portal in line of sight, so I have enough time to get stealth. load up some dots, make sure I'm on top of interrupts. Again, I got that guy early, just in case somebody else was planning on it. That way we didn't risk overlapping and losing out. And again, here you see that, you know, again, antithetical to how rogues work, but I got some bleeds rolling. My energy regen's great, so I just spam Fan of Knives over combo point cap until I, you know, start seeing some of the bleeds fall out, and I start seeing that my energy is not going to be regenning as fast, and then I go back into my normal rotation of, you know, either if they're low, I'll, you know, just Envenom and stuff to finish them off. If they're still mid-range health, then, you know, I'll start bleeding them up again. Obviously, you want to balance when you're applying bleeds to things, not doing it too low, too high a combo point, so you're just like wasting the time, you know, if they're going to die so early. Sometimes I do actually do that. Like in Tol Dagor, a lot of these guys run away, so even if they are starting to get low, I might apply like a higher end bleed to them and then just spam Fan as they're running. That way my ticks on them are a little bit higher as they're running away, and, you know, they'll drop before they go and aggro another pack. Sometimes, you know, you'll see me do it in this run where I literally just mess up, like I'm paying attention to other things, and, you know, I drop a Rupture on a mob that's about to die, and it's just, you know, completely pointless and wasted DPS, but such is life, it happens. I tend to, you know, again, the kind of the point of this video was to be more of like a pug-oriented, you know, when things go wrong, how you can help type thing. So when I'm in this setting, I'm paying attention to the group and, you know, our surroundings and, you know, what enemies are doing around us and where they're running to and all that. Much more than I am my rotation, at least for trash packs. You know, the trash packs are all like, you know, control things, interrupt the important things, drop stuns, you know, kite when necessary. You know, your rotation, while important, obviously, like they have to die and they have to die quick. It's a lot more important to control their nasty abilities and just be aware of them and, you know, be on top of them. So if you have to sacrifice a little damage here and there to do that, you know, just feel free. And then once you get enough reps in, you know, it becomes second nature. Like you've got the dungeons memorized, you've got all the packs memorized, you know what the abilities are, you know you can expect it all. So you're just you pump, you know, you have your rotation solid, you're still taking care of all the interrupts and things like that. For me, I do a bit of M+. I probably do, I don't know, 4 or 5 runs a week. Some of the lower ones, like in the 11 to 14 range, just to warm up, and then I'll get like a 15, 16, or 17 in just to get a nice chest at the end of the week. But they're fun. I don't like doing a ton of them. And with my Oceanic buddies that I run with, our schedules don't really line up extremely well, so I'm usually pugging more often than not. These guys, C Speakers, they're some of the worst ones in here, not just by way of like damage or anything like that, but they cast it's like Briny Bubble or something like that. I forget the name of it, Saltwater Bubble maybe, and it shields all of the enemies around them. So like that's the one thing you want to make sure to always get. These cages here you can open preemptively if you have like lock picks or if you have a rogue in your group, and you can pull these guys and get them out of the way. So the boss fight up ahead, he'll actually come and unlock all these cages. But if you pre-pull the mobs that are in those cages, he'll open them and there just won't be anything there, so you don't have to deal with them in the middle of the fight. They're pretty insignificant at the end of the day, like they hardly do much damage. I think I'm not sure if they trigger bursting or not. It looks like they did, yeah, and it got pretty bad there, so I go ahead and pop Cloak, help my healer out so he can focus on everybody else. But yeah, just helps to get him out of the way. I think on this run, actually, the tank was moving a bit quick, and I didn't get a chance to open the gates on the other side, so we just deal with it. We deal with it during the boss fight, but not too bad. This is a pretty easy pack. Couple of Arsonists. I think the Arsonists, they drop a nasty debuff on the tank of some sort, like armor reduction or a dot or something like that. So usually try to push them down fairly quick, get some stuns out maybe, things like that. But they aren't too shabby. This tank was actually really good. Him and I ended up being top DPS on the run, and the Demon Hunter and Mage were like less than half or something like that of me, which is fine. I'm not flexing about that. Like I really, you know, that's kind of the reason I'm starting to do these videos and stuff. I really just like helping people. I like doing training oriented things and like making people better, and at the end of the day, like the better everybody is in the game around me, then like, you know, the more fun everybody can have, including myself. So, you know, it's really easy to be mean and nasty to people and not be helpful, because like that takes no effort, right? And it makes you feel superior. But if you actually take the time to help people and, you know, be forgiving, if you brick a key, you know, it's not the end of the world. Like there's always another key to do. But yeah, so, you know, it's even with the huge DPS disparity, like we still managed to time this key pretty comfortably, you know. So it's like it's really, really up to you, you know, in a lot of cases, how well these runs can go to some degree. You know, obviously there'll be some that are just hopeless, but there's a lot you can do to help things along. This guy, he throws out a random shiv. I think that just slows somebody and puts a dot on him. Looks like our healer got it. Tank's holding him in a pretty bad place, so you really want to hold him over on the corner to our left. That way, like, we can just step over like a few paces and get around that corner. Like, he should have been here at the start, but the tank engaged him over in the corner for some reason. Not a big deal. I waited till there was like 2 seconds left on the cast and sprinted over there and got around the corner. That's just like kind of min-maxy type stuff. That little effect, he stuns everybody. If you have human racial, you can get out of it immediately and keep pumping. He'll come and open these cages. These are the guys I was talking about, where if you don't kill them on the way, if you don't open the cages on the way while you're clearing trash, then he'll unleash them during the fight, which worked to my benefit in this case because I got to pad my DPS a bit. I think once we get up here, I vanish, triple Garrote, I want to say, yeah, Garrote is buddy, Crimson Tempest probably, yeah, and then once we get up here, I pop Blood of the Enemy and I pump everything and pad my numbers hardcore. And probably should have done more just single target on the boss, but we were sitting pretty, so not that big of a deal. And really the strat here, the tank should have left Jess Howlis doing his little build-up thing, and we should have killed Bobby, his little buddy that comes out. So when you interrupt Jess, he gets back into the fight and starts doing all his mechanics, which includes, like, you know, the fear that you have to interrupt, and it includes that thing that you got to run out for, that blasts everybody. So you saw, like, his buddy pin me to the ground, which is his mechanic. My group did enough damage to him to make the interrupt, like, activate, so so they could get me out, but I think either nobody had an interrupt or it overlapped with this flashing daggers, so they all ran out and left me there pinned to the ground. I couldn't do anything. I took a huge blast from the flashing daggers. So again, if you ignore the main boss and just kill Bobby, then all you have to do is deal with Bobby's mechanics. Then you can run over to the main boss, interrupt him out of the little channel that he's doing, and just deal with him. Some groups, you know, if you're great and want to handle both, you know, obviously, like, that's probably the faster play because you can just cleave everything. But if you want to play it kind of safe, that's definitely the easier route. Just leave Jess channeling, kill Bobby, and then go interrupt Jess and start dealing with all his stuff. These guys are pretty easy. After it, these jailers do 2 mechanics. They have like a silencing choke out effect. Yeah, that handcuff right there. It'll stun somebody and make them, and it channels, so until they get interrupted or until the channel ends, they're just stuck there doing nothing. And then they do like a shield wall thing, so you kind of just want to interrupt either of those. This pack is, yeah, same thing, officer and a couple thugs, not a big deal. Tank's going up, and he knows this pack is fairly easy, so he's going ahead and grabbing the next pack. I think that's like a gunner and another officer or something like that. There's that riot shield. He was so low that we just went ahead and bursted him down. Usually I'd interrupt that, but he was already so low that you can just, like, DPS through it when that's the case. No need to waste a kidney shot to get him out of that when you don't have to. Another officer here. These Marines are good to burst down. I go ahead and just pop Vendetta on him just because I had it back up, and I know there's not really any, like, big mob that's going to require it in the next 2 minutes, so I like to get them out of the way. They have a couple nasty effects, and I think they random target people and do some, like, big shots on them and shit, so I try to get those guys out of the way as quick as I can. Looks like we do have a mini-boss up here. That was probably a poorly timed Vendetta. I should have saved it for this mini-boss, but not a big deal. This guy, I believe, he has a bunch of little ads, so usually what I do on him, I'll tricks the tank as soon as I get in here. Start on the boss, and those little ads will spawn, and I start feeding the tank through my tricks of the trade, misdirect, so he can get all these little ads on him. Priest did a phenomenal job at keeping us dispelled here. So this guy also puts, like, purple rings around random people, and it will it'll fear you when it expires. You can Cloak of Shadows and immunity out of it, but in this case, like, the priest was so on top of it, he was dispelling us really well. So here it goes again. He got my dispel. You know, I was running out here to drop the fear by myself. But he dispelled me, so I can just safely come back in. If you do need to let the debuff go off and you're gonna eat the fear, make sure you do it away from everybody, because if anybody else is in your ring, if they get clipped, they'll also get feared, which is not great, especially if you accidentally clip a tank or whatever. So this one, yeah, there you see it. So I ran out here. I probably line of sighted the healer on honestly, and I should have just stayed in there and let him dispel me if he had it up, but not the end of the world. I had a self-heal for myself and stuff, so it was safe. We dropped the portal out here. We skipped a little bit of trash. I think it might have been like a pack or two. And then right here, everything goes kind of south. So the mage, I would usually get in the cannon, but again, this was a pug, and I wanted to just kind of gauging what the tank was going to do. So I want to see, did he pull those guys out there? I think he did. Yeah, so he pulled that pack. He should not have pulled those guys out there. And then the other thing that happened is this. Oh, I feel like this happens in almost every Tol Dagor run. Over on the left of my screen there, you saw a bunch of mobs. Those actually came through the wall. From way back in the room where we first engaged that mini boss. So you really have to be careful, like not to stand near that wall over there. Let's see if I get sight on it. Yeah, so where I'm pointing, you don't want to stand on the wall over there. If you do any AoE effects, or it might even just be proximity, like if you're standing on that wall and the mobs come running through, even if you don't cast anything, you know, it's a really buggy instance. The line of sight on the walls and stuff don't react too well. So at this point, we're wiping pretty bad. We wasted all the rounds in that cannon. You only get like 5 rounds now. But ideally, what you want to do, like in my head, we would have killed those first 2 mobs that were standing in front of the cannon, and then these next 2 packs that are here along this area that I'm just sitting here waiting for my death in. There's, I think, like 4 or 6 mobs or something. You want to pull the backpack with the cannon, and then as they get up and start crossing over the front pack, then you start hitting them all together. If somebody pulls them early, they get all staggered. Obviously, if you have like folks in your group that can like mass grip and entangle and things like that, you know, mass stun or, you know, blizzard slow, you can kind of negate some of that stuff. But in general, you want to just like let the cannon do all the work for you. So you guys will see like way up ahead. Again, since we wasted all the rounds in this cannon, we can't use it for this pool. We just have to kill these guys normally now. But way up ahead, I try to do it the right way. The tank actually, he ends up pooling early again, but there were some slow effects out, so it didn't affect it too much. But you'll be able to see that here in a minute. We're just kind of recuperating here. Taking inventory. Looks like everybody's set. Tank's ready, so start going in. I tricks him and pummel this guy down. Another officer. Again, he's got handcuff and he's got the little shield wall, so you just try to keep either of those from going off, and pretty golden. I'm interrupting early again just so we don't overlap interrupts. Cannon's useless to us, so we got to just go through it. Looks like we did kill a few mobs. Usually this pack, I think, is like 3, and it was only 2 now. I think there's 2 marksmen. And the tank comes and we should have just killed those 2 and then come into this 3, because there's a couple flame casters. I think this is the first encounter you'll have with these flame casters, at least like forced encounter. There's some ones earlier, but people typically never pull them. First encounter with these flame casters, they have a couple of really nasty abilities. They do this blaze, they drop shit on the ground. I think they self-heal. So they're a lot easier to take in smaller doses or just handle properly with the cannons in the first place to save yourself a ton of time. But not a big deal. We get through it. Everybody's dancing pretty well other than the Demon Hunter. Looks like he ate something. A couple handcuffs. Again, so it's like 2 officers now, so you got 2 handcuffs to worry about that are going out, 2 shield walls. What's that called? Riot shield. That's what it's called, yeah. It's like his little shield wall effect. There's another one going off. He's low. I think we just leave that one and burn him through it, just because it wasn't... he was already low enough. Probably should have interrupted him, because he didn't even die within it. So those guys are out of the way. So this is the one, and I'm trying to rush up like before they make any bad decisions again. And as a rogue or a hunter, you can actually misdirect the tank and feed them all the aggro. Oh, okay, never mind. So we did the pylon first. So we'll do the pylon and then we'll do the cannon. So this guy, super easy. You just kill if you're not going to kite him, you just kill a couple of these little growths to open up room. And then he just has 2 abilities. So this Dark Fury you want to get out of. Of course, I'm slowed from these pustules, so I eat one. I fainted right before it to lessen the damage and make my healer's life easier. But in all reality, I should have planned to get out of that one way or another. I should have saved Cloak or had a sprint, or I probably could have shadow stepped somebody. Like, that was just a bad play on my part. There's another one, and now that the growths are clear, we're safe to get in and out. Shadow step back. This guy's kind of a joke. Once you either kite him just way away from those growths, like the growths won't follow you, or you just kill a couple growths and give yourself space. So either way works, just depends on what route the tank wants to take. And then at this point we're back. I tell him I'll do the cannon. I misdirect the tank. So see right here, he blooded on them too early, or death and decayed on him too early, so he pulled that front pack. He should have let me pull that backpack like I did, and then as they came through the front pack, Death and Decay on them while I nuke all of them down. So they got a little fragmented. I still got a ton of really good damage on them, so it went overall pretty well. I think it was like, what, yeah, a Flamecaster at half, Marine at quarter, and then a Marine at, 3/4 health. So this is pretty easy cleanup. But if they had been stacked properly from the get-go, I either could have wiped them out entirely with the cannon, or I could have had them all, down around 10-20%, and jumped out when I ran out of cannon rounds and just helped nuke them down really quick. But we end up spending an extra, 20-30 seconds here. So again, at this rate, the timer is what, 11:30 left. There's 2 bosses and a tiny bit of trash, so it's like really not too worried about the run getting bricked. As long as everybody handles stuff on the bosses, we're gonna be fine. So you just got to kind of choose where you want to min-max your time based on, like, when things are going wrong and how wrong they went and how much time you wasted, wiping and running back or this or that. So this boss is kind of chaotic if nobody knows what to do. So you want to stack all the barrels. You can pick them up and move them around the room. You want to stack them into like either 1, 2, or 3 corners, but you never want them to be in all 4 corners because you want to leave some of the room for your exposed for your group to be able to safely stand in while they explode. So a bunch drop down. It looks like to my right, like that corner's kind of clear, so I don't really bother jumping off of the boss. I let like the healer and the tank kind of deal with it. A couple people actually get eaten by her blasts or hit by her blasts there, but not too big of a deal. I sit in for a few extra seconds because I'm watching the timers on the bombs, and I get a little extra damage in, and then I get out of the way when those bombs are like a second or 2 from going off. I try to kind of stay on the edge. Right here, we had a barrel fall right by us, and I was close, so I go ahead and grab it. Shadow Step back to her so I don't eat her Cinder Flame. That's the great thing with Shadow Step on frontal abilities like that. When you gotta close a gap, it puts you behind the boss or the enemy inherently. Right there, I think the tank is like trying to help too much on the barrels, and he actually drug the boss back into them as they were exploding and put her in an awkward spot. So usually like a healer and a ranged DPS can handle these pretty well. Somebody grab that barrel. They're just bringing it into this corner with us so it doesn't blow up with this lot of them. And yeah, it's managing barrels the whole time. These little rings that she puts out will cause barrels to explode if you don't move it out of them too. And I actually stood in one like an idiot there, took a huge blast. Shouldn't have done that. I think I thought I had cloak up and didn't bother to check. So at this point, room's pretty clear. She drops a few more. We've got, I think, 1 or 2 open corners at least. That's the bad corner. Tank did a really good job there. He kind of pulled her over by those barrels, knowing that she would prioritize them because there's so many, and then causes her to shoot it. And then, now we have just a tremendous amount of space to work with on this go-around. So that was a really, really good example of barrels done right. And yeah, outside of the barrels, there's really not a whole lot. She random dots people, and those rings are on the ground that you don't want to stand in like I did. At that point, I think I thought we weren't gonna kill her before that blast, so I went to find a safe spot, but it ended up we killed her, so I kind of took off for no reason. Abandoned my homies. That guy, if you're quick, even though he has stealth sight, if you spin him and you charge at him and mash sap, you can get a sap off before he puts you in combat. So I noticed, I think our percent is at like 96 right now. My video is kind of small. I can't see the text while I'm narrating this. I assumed that guy, I know there's these 2 and there's 2 more up at the top of the stairs, and I assumed that was going to be enough to finish our percent out. So I sapped that guy early and hoping my group would telepathically agree, and it seems like they did. They saw what I was going for, so they just moved right around him with the sap, and we moved on to these guys. So these guys you kill outright. Priests, they have like a self-heal, they have AoE. I think that Inner Flames is self-heal, and the AoE you just either stun them or you step out of it. I tricks the tank. He seems pretty competent by this point, and I'm comfortable that he's done this a lot of times and knows to bring these guys down, so we didn't even have to talk about it. I think I did say down, but he was already on the way with it. So these 2 guys come down, get a bunch of cannon blasts. I think our DH gets a little trigger happy and goes to run in and get some damage. Yeah, I almost blasted him there. Really, just you wanna throw like distant slows and stuff like that, distant grips, distant roots when somebody's in the cannon trying to handle these things. But don't go in there because like you can get one-shotted by that cannon, and all we're trying to do is like wipe them out with the cannon. So you can end up kind of screwing the group over and getting yourself killed by a cannon death when your DPS is so irrelevant. You just do so much damage in that cannon. So this guy, the the mage pulled early. The stock strat here usually is tank will hold him in this corner. Tank will stay there the whole time. He'll put orange rings around people, and you want to get your back to a wall. So you can see like the priest on my left has his back in that little corner, so he doesn't get knocked back when it explodes. There's that little thing that puts out like a crisscross pattern on the ground. You want to stand in the lighter areas, and then there's that dead eye, which unless you have an immunity to clear the debuff left behind by it, only one person can eat one for the duration of the fight. So you want to take turns. So like I think in a little bit I see it going on to Rosalind again, and I step in the way of it because I noticed that Rosalind took the very first one there, and he can't take another one. So here's cross ignition again, step into the lighter area, and at this point some funny shit starts happening really. Or maybe it was the DH, so you can see there, okay, priest and mage had it, they got knocked back a little bit. Now I've got it, so I'm going to kind of put my back with the staircase right behind me. I get knocked into the staircase. I'm in good shape right for the cross ignition there. And at this point, the DH just starts like running around like crazy, like he's looking for his missing dog or something. I step in front of the priest. I cloak the hit from it. The DH is like up on the tank. He dives out. He's running around all over the place. The thing with this fight, you can't move a lot. Like if you look under my unit frame, there's something. I can't see what the hell it's called, but there's a bar, and the more you move, the higher that bar goes, and if it gets to 100, it'll stun you for like 8 seconds, and it's a nightmare. So your movement should be extremely minimal, and if you need to move, then get it out of the way quick and get planted again wherever you need to be. That way because the bar will tick back down as long as you're standing still. So the DH is still running around like crazy. I think he starts saying like, I'm getting stunned, and in between DPS I'm trying to type to him, yeah, because you're running around constantly, so stop running. Pretty funny shit, and he's like doing no damage at this point. I don't know what he was doing. He was pretty decent overall for the run, but it was almost like he'd never done this fight before. And so at this point, like I stood on top of him. So at this point, the boss was low, and in my head, I was like, okay, this guy's he's running all over the place. He doesn't seem to know what he's doing. I need to make sure this boss dies, right? Because he's not really doing a lot. So if he's in my way, he's in my way. Like I'm not going to get out of his way, right? Because he's not really contributing a lot here anyway. So I'm just going to do what I need to do to keep myself safe, keep myself from getting knocked back too far, and try to finish the boss off. And of course we did, and we did a pretty good job. If it weren't for that one cannon wipe, the very first one that we wasted, we probably would have +2'd it, but we only got a +1. But yeah, it was a fun run. And again, like I love pugging. I mean, it can be frustrating. It really can. And there will come points where it's just like, all right, guys, like this run's not going to happen. Like obviously you queued up when you don't have the gear to handle the DPS requirements and stuff like that. But you don't have to be mean and nasty about it. It's just like just admit the truth and move on with life. For everybody harsh out and it's done. But yeah, so hopefully this can help. I'm planning on doing quite a bit more of these. I've got a Waycrest run that I already recorded, queued up, and we'll keep rocking and rolling. So if you have any questions or comments, or I did things wrong and you want to make fun of me, please feel free to send a chat in game. It's Keziah Kazgaroth, or comment on the video down below. I'll try to get back to everybody and stuff. And also just let me know if there are other things that people want to see. So I planned on doing some more Mythic Plus. I don't know, I might get around to doing like every single dungeon, just like coverage of every single dungeon for people that are more entry level into like the harder side of this stuff, and want to know how to handle mechanics and what things are more devastating than others and stuff like that. I'm going to do a Stormwind 5-mask run that I'll commentate and narrate over, similar to the Orgrimmar run that I did this week that went over really well with folks and seemed to help a lot of people out. And then probably just some other random stuff. But yeah, if you have any ideas of things that you're like struggling with and want to see and hear commentary on, I think this kind of forum, like, it's a lot better than, so you can like watch strat videos, right? Like, how to handle this boss, how to handle, these trash packs, or how to handle this dungeon run. But like the video, just like, they tend to just skip through, the entire dungeon just to like the key points. There's not somebody talking you through like, okay, this is going wrong, so this is, kind of how I help mitigate it. This is happening, so this is how I help deal with it, that sort of thing. I feel like it's a bit more natural and more more true to like what you can expect, especially if you're pugging, right? Like things are going to go wrong. Everybody's not going to be on the same, you know, skill level. But you know, there's stuff you can do to help alleviate all that. And you know, maybe there's 3 or 4 people that really know what they're doing and they're carrying the run, and one person that's slacking behind. So like, you know, those 3 or 4 people really need to step it up a little bit and amp it up to kind of get everybody through. And again, you know, the more people that know how to do this stuff and are more comfortable doing this stuff, the more players we all have to play with. So please just try to be nice to people, try to be helpful. I know it sucks watching a timer go down, having to explain things to people that they don't seem to understand, but you know, if you explain it to them the next time they do it, then they will understand. So hopefully this helps, and hopefully we'll get a bunch more in here soon. Thanks, guys.